I just came back from the US where I spent 10 days. Hello, my friends, and it's so good to be back and to share with you some of my takeaways from this trip. The main reason why I was there was an event that I've been attending now for the third year in a row. And it's one of my favorite events to go to, one of the opportunities for me to meet so many interesting people who are very successful in their businesses, but also they're fascinating to talk to. They're visionaries, they're the doers, the creators. This environment provides lots of opportunity for learning. So I just want to share my takeaways from the trip and to mention a little bit about the event. It has been organized by Jason Gaignard, and I think that was his 5th or 6th event that he ran. He has been named by Forbes one of the top networks to watch. He has a beautiful podcast called Community Made. He's an author of a book, and he organizes this 3 days life experience for people who go there in a safe environment, regardless of their industries. There are very severe criteria of what sort of people they are, but they have uncommon commonalities. And usually the event is set in a very beautiful place. He chooses the hotels very carefully. He crafts the events, the experiences, the dinners, who do you sit next to. So it's one of these things where you go, you immerse for 5 days. Although the event is for free, you go a little bit earlier, you stay for 1 more day. And it's something which is, for me, it's probably one of the highlights of my year. Because there is no direct flight to Salt Lake City, I decided on the way there to stop in Chicago and catch up with a friend who lives there for a weekend and to adjust to the time difference. And on the way back, I went through New York. Every time when I travel across the ocean, I try to expand my trip a bit because then, you know, you're taking a 7, 8, 9 hours flight, so it's worth it to stay a little bit longer. And while I was in Chicago, I was walking on the street, enjoying seeing new things, bridges, architecture, the water, the lake, the rivers. And I was thinking, why is it that I love traveling so much? What is it in traveling that makes it so attractive to so many people? If you think of it, it's too much hassle. You have to pack, unpack, you have to find a hotel, check in, you have to figure out how to get from one point to another, organize help at home. Then when you come back, you need time to adjust back to reality. But why would people love it? And then it came to me that the reason why I loved it so much is that it makes me very present. Not very often in your day-to-day environment where we go through the day in unconscious mode, we feel as present as we do when we travel. And the reason why we're so present there is that we are in exploring mode. So if I'm wandering the streets of Chicago, not knowing where exactly I'm going, it's important for me to sort of be there in the moment. And because I'm there with the idea to learn more and to see more, I'm constantly looking around with open mind, people watching, looking for different sorts of food places so I can experience something more. And also you are outside of your comfort zone. You land at a new airport, you need to figure out what sort of transport to take to get to a hotel. So you have to be there in this moment. And when we are present in the moment, we have this glimpse of the beauty of the world. It's very much like we can sense, we can embrace the whole environment with all our senses. And it's the time when we get thoughtless. We don't have that many thoughts. And I guess that is the reason why I enjoyed so much, because although through the last probably decade, I've been trying to work a lot on being more present, I still find it requires an effort. Whereas when I travel, it's very effortless. And then it made me think as well how people choose to do dangerous sports like rock climbing or jumping from airplanes with parachutes. And that may be what they're looking for as well without even realizing it, is that it's just these moments of presence. You cannot be rock climbing and, you know, everything depends on what sorts of movement you take and make next. and not be in this particular moment. So it's beautiful for me to figure this out, but how do I implement it in my current life? So at the moment when I came back, I decided, okay, there must be a way to break my automatic habitual behavior. So I will take different route when I go to my workplace, or when I go to Mika's school as well to drop him in the morning. Also, when I do my running, let's say in the park, before I always take the same route. For years I'll take the same route, whereas now I'll go the other way around, or I choose different paths. So I choose deliberately things that are outside of my normal day-to-day previous life, so that it makes me more present. And I don't feel that that's so much hard for us to do. And give it a try. I think that you'll be surprised by the results. Second thing, big takeaway for me, is something which I've been thinking a lot before as well. So it's not new for me. I've been experiencing for the past 5 years since I had Mika, and since time became so much more important. So it is small talk versus going deep. And Jason even mentioned that at the event. I was always thinking, what makes MMT so special? MMT stands for Mastermind Talks. Of course, we have these beautiful people, amazing environment, amazing experiences, but it's also how come we connect so deeply with other people that we just met, or we met last year, but we don't really know. And one of the beauty is that when you craft such an environment where everyone has been deeply studied in a way by Jason, so he knows who he is and who knows who to put next to you, because we are usually arranged in our sittings. He creates an environment where small talk is not necessary anymore. So you can go straight to the deep thoughts, you can discuss visions and future and struggles and obstacles and your pain. You can be as vulnerable as possible. It's safe for you to be who you are. And I feel that with small talk, quite often it's the thing that we do because it's safer. And of course, with some strangers, maybe that's the way you should start to connect with them. But also I'm thinking, okay, does it need to be like that? I mean, this sort of a safety first filter of a small talk, instead of jumping straight away to a more deep conversations that would allow us to know each other. You can go through the whole night talking to someone, small talk superficially, and not to know anything about them, important about them. So it made me think, I know why we do it. We do it because we are afraid. We don't just want to show who we are immediately, or even to some of our closest friends, we more or less quite often play roles. And that's because of out of fear. We're afraid that we can be judged, we can be found stupid, we're imposters, that people can not like us if we are too vulnerable, or they may not like us if we seem too happy. I don't know, there is this fear that we may not disclose who we are. And I definitely felt that way in corporate, and I think it's changed a lot for me. But, I felt that years when I was working there, you have to put this mask on who you are, like the way you walk, the way you talk. You don't really share much of your private life, and you certainly don't share any of your weaknesses. So my invitation to you is to trade these small talks with more deeper conversations. And one way to do that is to just be more open-minded and look into the person who you talk to, regardless whether it's an old friend or someone who you just met, as someone who you don't know anything about. You're very open to get to know them, and there is nothing that they'll tell you that it's scary or you judge them or you'll be afraid of. And I actually did it with a friend of mine who I met last week, who I haven't seen in probably a year almost. And I told myself, don't get into the pattern knowing who she is and how she behaves and what things she does. It's just get into the pattern that you're seeing her for the first time, and that would open so many more conversations. So I invite you to do that. It's definitely worthy. And just break this pattern with your friends, or when you are with someone, you can go online, I guess, and find some conversation starters. There are so many nowadays. What are some questions you can ask so that you don't get automatically into these small talks? My third big takeaway is to get back to creating versus consuming. At the event, we are so busy that we don't literally have time to go and check our emails. And one of the beauty when I travel across the ocean, so many hours behind, is that the time when I wake up, it's already late afternoon in the UK, and by lunchtime, almost everyone is in bed. So it's even when you do work, you have to concentrate on the early mornings to get things done. So there aren't any phones in the room. I've hardly been on social media, hardly been looking into my emails. And you know what? You don't really miss it. And when I came back, I was thinking, okay, it's not that hard to get detached from your phone. And I don't consider myself being that addicted, but I do spend time online. I do spend time on Instagram, on Facebook. And although I have zero notifications, the only notifications that I receive on my phone have always been the iMessages, everything else switched off, I still going and checking out different social media channels. Brendon Burchard, he always says, start your day with intention. And the creation versus consuming, creating versus consuming should be something like 80-20, at least in my books, in my view. You have to spend more time creating versus consuming information. Currently, majority of us are 99% consuming, 1% creating. And if you want the creation to evolve for you, to expand for you, you have to be more intentional about it. So in the morning, instead of checking your social media first thing when you wake up, which I don't recommend to anyone, Brendon talks a lot about that, how you can win the day from the morning. Joe Dispenza, who wrote The Placebo and who wrote Becoming Supernatural as well, speaks about that. The minute you wake up in the morning, you take your phone and you go to social media, to your Instagram or to Facebook, it's the minute when you reinforce who you think you are, your identity. So in times when you want to change your life or do something more meaningful in your book, whatever meaningful that means, you have to detach from the identity that you built for yourself. So for me, the takeaway is I'm much more intentional with my phone. My phone has always been for the past 7 years on airplane mode in the evening. I try not to go at night, although I'm guilty when I'm jet lagged for the past days. But also many of you who are following me on Instagram, you would see that I'm more active there on Instagram stories. So in a way, it may seem that I don't want to use that much, but I am more active. But I'm more active intentionally. I want to create more versus to consume more. And the last thing I want to leave you with, guys, it's something which I remind myself all the time. It's how important it is to have fun. I always have lots of fun when I go to this event. And last year, I remember vividly, and actually just before we filmed this video, I checked my takeaways from last year. Because last year when I went to the event, I did a video and I'll link it somewhere. And one of my takeaways there was the same, it's have fun. The importance of laughter, but like the belly laugh and for enjoyment, it's so big. Even when you think your immune system is down, when you've been traveling, not sleeping, you're coming with a cold, just half an hour of this laughter, it's boosting your immune system and you're recovering very quickly. We had last night a comedian, and I've never liked comedians just because I thought that I will never get the humor, so I didn't give them the chance in a way. Years ago when I moved to the UK, one of my bosses at the time, she gave me tickets for the best comedian here. We went, we had to leave. I didn't understand anything of the humor, so I thought the same thing would happen, but it didn't. I laughed so much, and then around dinners, after dinners, we had so much fun. So find time, and I think with laughter and with fun actually needs to be scheduled, because that's the first thing we drop when we have so many other things to do. At least that's the case for me. When I'm busy, fun will be the last thing. Now I'm more intentional of bringing fun into my day-to-day life and just benefit from the beauty of it. That's it from me, my friends. Thank you so much for watching, and please now go below and leave me a comment. What is something, an event or something that happened in your life recently that prompted you and inspired you to take action? I would love to hear from you. I love our discussions. You can find me on Instagram as well, where I share lots of my stories, and I'm so looking forward to see you next week. Bye!